Okay, welcome back. Okay, so we have strategic planning, we have tactical planning, and we have operational planning. Yeah. So the strategic planning, I think we've already talked about it. We've already talked about strategic planning. But what is tactical planning? So strategic planning is long-term. Tactical planning is shorter, usually medium-term objectives. Medium-term objectives. Then operational plans, anytime you hear operational, it simply means day to day. Day to day. It simply means day to day. Operational. It means day to day. Day to day. So what's an example of a strategic plan? A strategic plan would be a 5-year strategy. A 5-year strategy, For example, Vodafone can have a 5-year strategy that at the end of 5 years, it wants to overthrow MTN as number 1 in the market. Please, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. So you have an example of strategic plan would be a 5-year plan, a 5-year plan. And we have tactical plans as well. Tactical plan, a typical example would be an annual budget. That's a tactical plan. An operational plan is very, very short-term in nature. Very, very short-term in nature. So you move from, these are day-to-day stuff, and it's usually done by junior level people, supervisors, very, very low level people. Very, very low level people. So it's basically long-term strategic plan, tactical plan, medium, operational plan, day-to-day or very short-term. Okay. There are different approaches to strategic planning. Different approaches to
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, please. A question about the levels of strategic management, levels of strategy.
Okay.
We have the 3 strategies.
Mm-hmm.
I know the corporates talk about the whole organization.
Mm-hmm.
The functional talks about some departments.
Mm-hmm.
What picture can we create about the business strategy?
That's a very good question. That's a very, very good question. Okay, so you're wondering, corporate is the whole organization.
Yes, please.
I'm just rephrasing your question. Corporate is the whole organization. Functional is the functions within the organization.
Or otherwise, departments. Right?
Departments within the organization. So where does business strategy fit in?
Yes, please.
That's a very, very smart question. Okay, so in terms of in an organizational context, the business strategy is more of a concerted effort between the functions within an organization.
Wow. Come again, please.
Okay, so let me make it a lot simpler.
Yeah.
So in terms of corporate strategy is the overall organization, right? That's what is the top people, overall organization. the what do you call it? The functional strategy is the department.
Yes, sir.
But the business strategy is more of when I say concerted effort, I don't know if you get me. It's more of it's more of the interrelationship between the several departments. So for example, let me give you an example.
Okay, sir.
So finance would have a strategy, marketing will have a strategy, IT will have a strategy, manufacturing will have a strategy, right?
Yes.
Okay. So these strategies will need to come together. You know, these strategies, finance is not a department on its own. We are all working to achieve an overall goal.
Okay.
You know, so finance is not working on its own. Even though at the functional level of strategy, it looks like everyone is working on its own. But you should know that all these organizations, all these departments, have heads. All these departments have heads. So at the business level of strategy, all these strategies fuse together. You know, that's how come we see that one activity in one department impacts another activity. If you remember the definition I gave, I talked about how business strategy is more of activities leading to the overall strategy of the organization. So it sits in between, basically, it sits in between your functional and your corporate strategy. I don't know if I answered your question correctly. Okay. Hello? Hello? What's happening? Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get I'm trying to get feedback from the one who answered the question. Please, are you clear? Or I need to explain some more. I can explain some more if you want me to. Please, who asked the question? Please,
having some network problems.
Oh, okay. So should I move on?
So yes, sir, we can continue.
Yeah, let me just move on. But I hope it's clear. Is it clear to at least everyone?
Yes, sir.
Please explain some more.
Okay.
You can.
Okay, cool. So what I was trying to say is that you have what do you call it? You have corporate strategy, you have business strategy, and you have functional strategy, right? And your friend's question was that what if corporate strategy is the overall organization, you know, what exactly is business strategy or the business level? What exactly is that? What exactly is the business strategy? And I was saying that the functional strategy, at that level, the departments set their own strategies. Like they have their own plans. Every department comes up with their own plan. Every department comes up with their own plan. Every department comes up with their own plan. So marketing will have its plan. Finance will have a plan. IT will have their plan. But under the business strategy, all these plans come together. You know, they are fused together. So what finance does impacts marketing. What marketing does impacts technology. What technology does impacts research or whatever. So under the business strategy, it simply brings together all the plans of the functional strategy, basically. I don't know if is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, clear, sir.
Okay. Okay. Another way you can also think about it is this. In your companies, you have executive directors. These are the top people. You probably never see them. They will determine the corporate strategy, and they would bring it down to management. Then management will carry this down to departmental heads. So that's the flow from corporate to business to functional. Okay, so under levels of planning, we have strategic plan, we have tactical.
Okay.
Can I move on?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Under levels of planning, we have strategic planning, tactical planning, and operational planning. So again, you can somewhat link the levels of strategy to these levels of planning. Strategic planning is more of corporate strategy. Tactical planning is more of business, and operational planning is more of functional. Operational planning has a day-to-day effect. So I'm sure wherever you work, you are you are helping to contribute to the functional strategy. So there's a day-to-day assignment you do in order to achieve the functional strategy. And the functional strategy would help achieve the business strategy. The business strategy would help achieve the corporate strategy. Okay, so there are several approaches to strategic planning. Number one, we have the rational planning model. Now, when we say rational, one of the words that must pop into your mind quickly is logical. If it's rational, it means it's logical. If it's rational, it means it's logical. So what is rational planning model? It is like a structured, logical planning and management process, that goes through stages. So when you're doing your strategic planning, you go through stages under the rational planning model. Because it's rational, it's very logical, and it is step by step. So you go through the stages of what we call strategic analysis, strategic choice, and strategic implementation. Strategic analysis, strategic choice, and strategic implementation. So what's strategic analysis? Under strategic analysis, that's where you assess, like we said, the possible strategies you have. The possible strategies that you are thinking of. The possible strategies that you are thinking of, you put them down on paper and you analyze them. So that's the way the rational planning model works. You analyze the strategies. So for example, at Vodafone, one time we decided to roll out a youth product. That youth product was called Vodafone X. I'm sure if you are here on Vodafone, you are using Vodafone. I'm sure you use that. Maybe it's very likely your friend used that. Before we did that, we had to do a strategic analysis. So what does the strategic analysis entail? We had to, say that, we are trying to reach the youth, but how do we do it? Which segment of the youth should we reach? How should we target them? What exactly would appeal to them? Should we reach out to people in the campuses or in the village? Strategic analysis. Then we came up with strategic choice or choices. We chose a particular strategy, a line of strategy that we felt would work for us. So in terms of marketing, one of the things we did was we would find a nice artist, maybe one of these regular artists from Sarkodie to Stoneboy or to whoever, or Shatawali. And because these people appeal to the youth, we would send them on campuses and they'll perform. And while they are performing, we would also be selling our SIM cards and getting the whole Vodafone X thing out there. Then we implement. So basically, I was talking about the implementation. After we've made a choice, we implement. We go to the schools, we set up our banner, we say Vodafone X, we bring on artists, we participate in hall weeks. That's implementation of the choice. Then after everything in Vodafone, we used to call it post-implementation review. Here we call it evaluation of performance. After everything, we come back and say, so how did we fare? How did we fare? We put in X amount into the strategy. We put in 5,000 into the strategy. How many activations were we able to make? When we say activations, how many people subscribe to or bought the Vodafone SIM? How much money did we make? How much noise did we make? How well did people hear about us? How well did people hear about us? So it's a formal approach to strategic planning. It's very structured and it's step by step. That's a rational way of thinking about it. Then we also have the logical incremental model. The logical incremental. It's quite similar to the rational planning model because it's also logical. But it seems to, bridge the gap in terms of the limitations of the rational planning model. Because the rational planning model is structured and is step by step, when new strategies emerge, it might not capture it. So the logical incremental stipulates that effective strategies emerge, while you are going through your strategic planning process. So new strategies will come up. They are devised and they are implemented in increments. So you implement it step by step. So it's logical process. You go through the stages that you go through in the rational planning model, but new strategies are also devised as you go along. It's a lot more fluid and flexible compared to the rigid rational planning model. So that's the way you need to think about it. It's logical but incremental. It accepts new strategies. And implements them in increments. Then we have the freewheeling opportunism model. This one is not about a formal process. It's just being open to opportunities. being open to opportunities as they come and exploiting them. Being open to opportunities as they come and exploiting them. So a typical example I'll give you here is and a typical example I'll give you here is Vodafone. It's Vodafone. I think there was a time when MTN had a shutdown in some of their systems. So their MTN customers were suffering from like network problems. So quickly, we had to take advantage of that opportunity. It was an opportunity to us. And we rolled out, some quick, products, that switch to Vodafone, and, you could enjoy this, because we were taking advantage of the desperation of MTN customers. So that's the opportunism model. You are constantly looking out for opportunities to see, oh, okay, this competitor hasn't done this, or I see this in the market, I can quickly take advantage of it. That's the freewheeling. That's why it's called freewheeling. You are just, looking out for opportunities. Very, very important. Very, very important. So we are talking about the formal or the rational planning model. Formal or the rational planning model. And this is basically the elements of strategic management or formal strategic management. This is the elements of formal strategic management. Very, very key. So you have the strategic position, you have strategic choices, and you have strategy into action or strategy implementation. So under strategic position, you are doing an analysis or an assessment of the strategic position of the entity. Remember when we are talking about the strategic questions to ask, we mentioned about where are we now as a firm? Where are we now? Where are we now? So that's an assessment of the strategic position of the entity. Where are we now? Then we also need to understand that apart from the fact that we know where we are now, we also need to know the influences that in the environment that affect us as a business. All these things affect your position. All these things affect your position. All these things affect your position. So that's all about the strategic position. This is very, very key. You need to know the environment and you need to know your capability. Your capability is internal, your environment is external. That's what. So your strategic capability represents your strengths and your weaknesses, which is more internal. We'll be talking more about the SWOT model or SWOT analysis. Strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external. They exist in the environment. They exist in the environment. They exist in the environment. So that's your strategic position. First of all, when you hear strategic position, don't only think of where we are, but also think of your environment, because your environment is also impacting you. So where you are plus your environment, where you are plus your environment. Then strategic choices. Strategic choices, you make choices based on the alternatives that are available to you, basically. After you've done your assessment, you make a choice or a decision and say, this is what I'm going with. Then you implement. And your implementation would include organizing, managing, and constantly adapting to the market and changes that exist in the market. You know, your strategy should be fluid enough to accommodate changes, because your market is constantly evolving, constantly evolving, constantly evolving. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay. So we move on to the hierarchy of objectives and plans. We are laying the foundations, the hierarchy of objectives and plans. So every organization will have, first of all, a mission / vision, a mission / vision, every organization. Mission plus vision is very, very important. There's no organization which shouldn't have a mission. You should have a mission. Even individuals have missions. So your mission is basically the reason for your existence, the purpose of the organization. That's your mission. Why are you doing what you are doing? Why are you here as an organization? What are you seeking to achieve? What are you seeking to achieve? You know? Then you have a vision. Your vision is your optimal future state, you know, where you see yourself to be, your future state. That's your vision. That's your vision, your desired optimal future state. Very, very key. Very, very key. Very, very key. So you have your ambition, your vision. Then you have goals and objectives. Goals and objectives. The difference between a goal and an objective is how it is expressed. You know, usually people ask, what's the difference between a goal and an objective? Yeah, the same. And they're the same. Yeah, they are very similar, but they are probably not the same. Very similar, but they are probably not the same. So goals are expressed in narrative terms or descriptive terms. I want to go to, I want to do my my master's in 5 years' time. I want to do my master's in 5 years' time. So goals are expressed more in narrative terms, but objectives are derived from goals and are expressed in more measurable terms or measurable form, something that you can measure. You know, so that's the difference, goals and objectives. It differs in the way they are expressed. Goals are expressed in narrative terms. Goals are expressed in narrative terms, and objectives are expressed in a more measurable term or more measurable form. So we always say that objectives should be smart. Objective should be smart. You have the objective to be specific, measurable. In your text, it says agreed for A, but in other text too, it says achievable or attainable. Achievable or attainable. The R represents realistic and T represents time bound. So it should be specific. Specific, you know, pointing to something in particular. It should be measurable, you know, measurable in quantifiable. Could you please mute your microphone? It should be measurable in quantifiable terms. It should be agreed upon, attainable and achievable. It should be realistic, and it should be time bound. I want to achieve this objective in 5 years. Then that's a smart objective. we talked about strategic, tactical, and operational plans in the past slide or the previous slide. So I wouldn't go too much into it, but that's basically a summary. Strategic plan is a longer term target. Tactical plan is more of an implementation or medium term target, more about budgeting. Operational plans are more of action plans or day-to-day plans. Day-to-day plans. So that's the hierarchy: mission, goals, objectives, strategic plans, tactical plans, operational plans. Mission and vision, goals, objectives, strategic plans, tactical plans, and operational plans. So that's the hierarchy of objectives and plans, basically. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, let's move on. Like we said, every organization does not exist in a vacuum. Every organization does not exist in a vacuum or does not exist alone. So all organizations are influenced by the environment, and they are influenced by stakeholders. All these stakeholders have expectation. The reason why we call them stakeholders is because they hold a stake in the organization. What's the stake? An interest. They have an interest in the organization. So just think about it this way. Let's bring it home and make it simple. Let's say you are going to get married. And when you are going to get married, you have, who will be the stakeholders? The families involved, the parents involved, are stakeholders. They have an interest in the marriage. Not only the couple, but the family as well have an interest in the marriage. I think even the children, if they are children, they'll have an interest in the marriage. So stakeholders are individuals or groups that have an interest in what's in the strategy of the organization. That's why they are called holders of stake. They hold an interest in the organization. And these stakeholders have expectations. They have expectations. Just like your parents have. When your parents take you to school, they are stakeholders. They are looking for you to succeed. They are looking for you to do well. They are really looking for you to get to the top. So they have an interest. There are different kinds of stakeholders of an organization. We can't mention, there are a lot of them. So I pinpointed a few. So shareholders. What are shareholders? What are they expecting? What are the expectations? The expectation is that the company or the organization would make profits, and that their share prices will increase. When their share prices increase, they are shareholders, make money. So those are stakeholder expectations for shareholders. What about directors? Directors are also looking to, to advance. They are looking for their own personal advancement. And they're also looking for bonuses, because sometimes director bonuses are tied to profits. So they are also looking for bonuses. What about suppliers? Suppliers are also looking, they are expecting that organizations will pay them back for maybe the goods they got from them. So they are looking at the credit worthiness of the organization. How are they able to pay back, the things they got on credit? So one of the things that will be of concern to suppliers will be the cash position of the organization. The cash position or the liquidity position of the organization. Very, very important. Then you also have customers. Customers are more into they are looking for value, you know, products that offer value, and are priced reasonably, you know. So these are customers. Employees are looking at job security. They are hoping that the organization would be around for a while so that they can keep their jobs. So everyone has their interests. Everyone has their stake in the organization. So employees, all they are thinking about is their job security. They are hoping that nothing goes wrong so that the organization, you know, can continue to pay them. Then you also have government. Government is more interested in their taxes. They are more interested in their taxes. And, you know, more interested basically in their taxes. So these are some of the stakeholders and their expectations. Then we also have internal, we have two types of stakeholders basically. We have the internal stakeholders versus the external stakeholders. We have the internal stakeholders versus the external stakeholders. You know, some of the stakeholders we mentioned, like the employee is an internal stakeholder. Government is an external stakeholder. The internal stakeholder, they exist within the organization. Directors are an example of an internal stakeholder. Then we also have external stakeholders, which are customers, suppliers, etc. All these groups of people have interests. They have interests in the organization. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay, so let's move on. So we move on, we talk about stakeholder mapping. So what is stakeholder mapping? Stakeholder mapping is a simple process where you show the different kinds of stakeholders you have and their significance or their relative importance. You show the various stakeholders you have and their relative interests and importance, you know. And you do stakeholder mapping. There are various models you can use to do your stakeholder mapping. A guy called Mendelov, he introduced what we call the power versus the interest matrix. The power versus the interest matrix. So he designed that model so that you can map your stakeholders and assess their significance. So number one, you have, in situations where you have a low power, low interest, according to the Mendelov's power interest matrix,